One kid killing the parents is a bad seed. 2 kids killing the parents is a bad family.
Dr. Oziel asked or testified that you told him that you thought your father would have been proud of you for killing him, that your father knew he should have been killed, and that your father would have been proud of the good job that you did. Do you remember having any discussion with him about whether your father would have been proud of you or not?
We had I wouldn't say it was a discussion, but I was saying that I thought my dad would be proud that my brother and I had stuck together afterwards and were very close. You know, and that was one of the reasons that it concerned me that he went to Oziel instead of me, because I felt that we had stuck together and were very close, and was trying to get him into the same school I was going to and so on, live near each other. And I thought that Dad would be proud of that.
Did you say anything about your dad knew he should have been killed?
No.
Did you say anything about your dad would have been proud of the good job that you did?
No.
Dr. Oziel testified that you told him that you believed that your father would only continue to take more and more money, would only continue to make more and more money as time went on. Did you tell him that?
Yes.
And Dr. Oziel testified that you had suspected that there was another will which would have disinherited the two of you. Did you tell
Yes.
Dr. Oziel that? And he testified that there had been a file on the computer marked will, and that you had arranged to have it erased. Is that true? Did you tell him that?
Not really, not the way that it is there. I explained to him exactly what happened with the computer.
He's testified that you said you erased it so that excuse me, that this was to erase the possibility of discovering a will that would have disinherited the two of you. Did you tell him that?
No, I didn't tell him that. And that couldn't be.
He testified that at one point, when he's talking about having the tapes, you expressed some concern in terms of strike that, if I may, Your Honor. Dr. Oziel tells you he has some tapes, and that if something happens to him, those tapes are going to be released. Is that correct?
Right.
And Dr. Oziel testified that in response to that, you indicated that you were concerned about whether something would happen to him accidentally and the tapes would be erased.
Right,
or would be
especially,
released. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
especially after he mentioned the hitman. You know, I told him, this doesn't sound like a great precaution, because what happens if something happens to you and then just all this information is just released, and it could just be that you got into a car accident, or you mentioned the hitman, and something about the hitman could have happened, or he could kill you or something, or there just seemed to be obviously anything that could happen in his life, because I guess they were going to be in the safety deposit box for his whole life, was what he was saying. So I was concerned about that, and
Did you make a joke about it, about protecting him? He said that you made a joke about if somebody broke into his house.
yes, I made a joke about it.
What was the joke?
Just that the way he had arranged it with the safety deposit box, it would be like I would almost have to be looking after him for his whole life, and if anything was about to happen to him, like if a burglar broke into his home, I'd have to be there to make sure that the burglar didn't do anything to him, because otherwise my brother's confession would go to the police.
Dr. Oziel testified that there was a discussion between you and your brother when you were there with him on November 2nd about how the family looked perfect, like the ideal family to the outside world, but in reality it was a disastrously negative family, that the marriage between the two parents was a very terrible mother. Do you remember having a discussion like that?
It was a very terrible marriage.
Did you have a discussion like that with Dr. Oziel?
Yes.
He goes on to say that you and your brother talked about the mother and father had almost no relationship except the negative, and it was an emotionally abusive relationship with the father being the abuser. Did you and your brother talk about that in front of Dr. Oziel?
Right.
Dr. Oziel says that you told him that you had nothing but distance with respect to the father, and all you got was criticism, rejection, humiliation, and that you also didn't have a closer nurturing relationship with the mother. Did you and your brother have that discussion in front of Dr. Oziel?
Right, that's not exactly true, but we had that discussion, and that was definitely his view through this entire thing, and I was not. There were things that were not correct about it, but I didn't correct him.
What wasn't correct about it?
Well, there were lots of things. I mean, certainly the change in the relationship between my mom and dad, I didn't mention to him and didn't explain why I felt that was happening. He saw my dad as the abuser and did not have a sense of who my mother was, and really the things that, she in her own way was very abusive to him, I felt, and meaning my father. And so I didn't get into my mother at all with him, because he felt she was suicidal, depressed, and it was like a mercy killing thing. So there were a lot of areas where he was really, it just wasn't correct, but we just stayed with what he felt pretty strongly about.
Dr. Oziel said that you talked about idolizing your father, but didn't use the word love with respect to him. Do you remember any discussions with regard to your father and idolizing him?
Yes. And I think he could get that sense, since I admired my dad a great deal, and I definitely told him that I loved my father. And he was trying to explain to me why that was strange, but possible. And it's just not true that I didn't tell him that.
Dr. Oziel testified that in some ways the two of you were in awe of your father and saw him as a very powerful person because he'd been controlling you for much of your life. Did you and your brother say that?
Yes, that was part of the discussion. I would not have just said it like that, but it's pretty close.
Dr. Oziel testified that you told him that killing your father was a way of vindicating that you had a level of power than yourselves. And you said that, he said that was your statement, that you'd expressed what happened as a way of vindicating yourselves that you had a level of power, and that you'd finally gotten to the place where you did something perfectly. Did you ever tell him that?
No, but I do remember that.
What do you remember?
That he mentioned that as a possible reason or thing that was going on.
Who mentioned it?
that Dr. Oziel said that there might be this, the control might have caused me to react in a way to free myself from the control and be sort of vindicated that I had my own power as a person or something like that. And he talked about that, but we never talked about it, about the perfect stuff.
Okay. So when he talked about this vindicating yourselves and having a level of power yourselves, when he suggested it, did you say, no, you're wrong, or I've never thought about that, or just agree, or what'd you do?
No, see, it wasn't that I was just saying yes, 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 but I was mostly agreeing and I wasn't correcting a lot of things. But the way he says, he gives a long explanation, like using words like that, vindicating levels of power and stuff. It fits to some degree that there was power differences and the control, and so it was very easy to just agree with the things he was saying and discuss it.
And did you ever say that, did either of you ever say on that November 2nd session that you'd finally gotten to the place where you did something perfectly?
No.
Did you feel this had been the perfect crime?
No.
Dr. Oziel testified that he told you that he was going to collect all the mitigating details of your background and so that whatever happened down the road, if you got arrested, those mitigating details could be brought out. Do you remember him saying something like that?
Yes.
Did you think that he was talking about how the crime was committed, or what did you think he was talking about in terms of mitigating details?
Well, that was in the early part of the session when he was saying that he could be, in the event that we got arrested, he could be helpful in a trial to my attorney in piecing together the family constellation, which is basically what he said. And that, just helping explain the dynamic and the reasons as he saw it. He thought he was getting a very clear picture as to why it happened, even if we didn't know why. He felt he was getting a good picture and that he could help in a trial. And
so was it your understanding that this was going to be a collection of positive bits of information about you, or that he was going to be putting together things that would hurt you in a trial?
No, positive things.
Dr. Oziel testified that that you had said you had been dating someone that you felt was a difficult person to date, and it was an accomplishment. And you said it was a Rose Festival queen and a Billboard model. Dr. Oziel said these were two different women, and that your father had ridiculed and even made fun of these two women he was dating and called them both bimbos. Do you remember Dr. Oziel testifying to that?
Yes.
Did he call the Billboard model a bimbo?
Yeah, who am I
Your
dating?
father. Did
Yes.
your father call the Billboard model a bimbo?
Yes.
What about the Rose Queen?
No, that was the girlfriend. That was like his ideal. He picked her for me, and it didn't work out, but that's what he wanted.
So did you tell Dr. Oziel that your father had called the Rose Festival Queen a bimbo?
No, I wouldn't have told him that.
Did you tell him that your father picked her as a girlfriend
Yeah,
for
I
you?
was trying to explain the difference. And I did not say that dating Christy was an achievement. I would never have said that.
Christy being the Billboard model?
Right.
So is Dr. Oziel wrong here when he says that you said that your father called the Rose Festival Queen a bimbo?
Yeah, he's wrong.
Did you just get it mixed up?
No, it sounds like he's just trying to make a point and using some of what I told him, but it certainly doesn't, it's not possible that I told him that.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
In a moment. Any examination on behalf of Erik Menendez?
No, Your Honor.
All right, you may approach.